Surprise, it's me again, your MC for the day. I hope you enjoyed the former panel. What I heard is that mental health is really, really important, and we need to take time out for that. I think we can all agree on that, and I bet our next panel and panelists may have some views on that too. So I would like to introduce our moderator, Star Jones. She is the co-founder of Instant Impact Group, and she and her panelists are going to be having a conversation. I expect a very candid conversation on leadership, purpose, and inclusion. Star Jones, over to you.
Thank you so very much, Francesca, and hello, everyone. I am Star Jones, and I have to tell you, I will do everything in my power not to be these are my mentors in business fangirl during this session. I get so excited with just the thought that I get a chance to talk to two of the women that I have admired. I've actually interviewed a couple of times. We are so privileged to have two of the world's most powerful, influential, inspiring, motivating, and formidable leaders of any gender, of any generation joining us today. We have them all to ourselves for the next few minutes. So I'm hoping today's fireside chat will be an open and meaningful conversation about lifetime experiences, personal stories of receiving and applying purpose and inclusion, and lessons on leading with purpose for an inclusive and resilient world. So let's get started with a quick introduction of our amazing speakers. First, Arianna Huffington. Arianna is the founder and CEO of Thrive Global. So she is also the founder of the Huffington Post and an author of 15 books, including Thrive and The Sleep Revolution, which I know a little bit about because she chastised me the last time we were together about not getting enough rest. In 2016, she launched Thrive Global, a leading behavior change tech company with the mission of changing the way we work and live by ending the collective delusion that burnout is the price we must pay for success. She's been named to Time Magazine's list of the world's 100 most influential people and the Forbes most powerful women list. Second, the formidable Victoria Mars, former chairperson and director of Mars Incorporated. Victoria has built a career based on creating trusting relationships that lead mutual, impactful results. What a freaking purpose that is. Her experience spans operations to governance over her more than 4 decades at Mars Incorporated. A legacy of Victoria's career is her commitment to Mars associates and making Mars a great place to work, which is reflected in the leading edge ombudsman program she developed and which continues to support the business today. She takes care of her people. So I am so excited to talk to you all about, and Arianna, I'm going to start with you. You've had a long and varied career from journalism to entrepreneurship. I think I've spoken to you throughout each one of those transitions. What led you to your purpose? And tell us, how has it evolved over the course of your career?
Thank you so much, Star. So great to be with you. And as you said, we've had a long journey of discussing these issues. For me, the wake-up call was in 2007, when I was 2 years into building the Huffington Post. I was the divorced mother of 2 teenage daughters. And I had bought into the collective delusion that in order to succeed, to be super founder and super mom, I did not have the luxury of taking care of myself. So I collapsed. I hit my head on my desk, broke my cheekbone, and the diagnosis was burnout. You know, in 2007, burnout was not as commonly used a diagnosis and a word as it is now. So I delved really deeply into it and realized that it was not just my personal problem, but a global epidemic. I started covering these issues exhaustively on the Huffington Post. I wrote 2 books about it, Thrive and The Sleep Revolution. And by 2016, I decided that I didn't just want to raise awareness. I wanted to help people change behaviors. And as you know, Star, changing behaviors is incredibly hard. So I've built now a technology company, a product-driven company that is like a coach in your pocket. It's only a SaaS enterprise product, so we partner with workplaces to be able to help their employees change behaviors through micro steps, tiny, daily, incremental steps, and storytelling, because we need to touch the mind and the heart, and the results have been amazing, which is what makes me so optimistic.
Absolutely. And as I think through what Thrive has done, it's really awakened women's ability to say it's okay to not be okay. For just a moment, it's okay to not be okay. And Victoria, I'll come to you. In contrast to Arianna, your career has been very much focused on one purpose-driven business, that of Moores Incorporated, obviously. When you're contributing to a business with such a storied history, how do you find your own purpose? And tell us how it's evolved over the course of your career.
Thank you. And I'm so glad to be here. And I think almost opening my mouth after everything you said so wonderful about me, I'm afraid to say anything because I might ruin that image. But I think I'd start by saying I wish I'd known this, but finding your purpose is absolutely key. And when I'm speaking to women, I always come back to finding a purpose that really is going to help you navigate all of the challenges you are going to face. And we all face challenges. And I wish I'd known that. So I didn't start out with a purpose, or I had a purpose. And one of the things that comes back, I wanted to be a doctor. I grew up wanting to be a doctor. I didn't do that. I ended up in a business looking for kind of where I could play a role and where I could make a difference. And as I was doing that, I found that really what I cared about is taking care of people, which of course brings me right back to where I started with I wanted to be a doctor. I didn't know why I wanted to be a doctor, but it had to do with taking care of people. And so, finding that purpose and understanding is what enabled me to really launch that ombudsman program and to find my passion and to continue to thrive in that area because I knew it was meeting my purpose. And so I think when you combine your own personal purpose with the business that has also a very strong purpose, that's the best win-win spot you can find yourself in. So, I found my purpose, and once I found my purpose within a family business that's very large, with very many things pulling you in different directions, expectations from other people of what you should or should not be or do. My purpose helped me navigate that difficult journey and feel really good about myself.
Oh, I'm making notes, okay? I'm 100% making notes on the two of you because this is literally how we get to purpose and we thrive in that purpose. So we've all been living in this new normal with this pandemic. I'm going to piggyback on the two words that you both used. Victoria, you used purpose. Arianna, you used thrive. What do leaders need to know about resilience to help people thrive in their purpose? And I'll ask you both. Arianna, you start.
Thank you, Star. So the first things that leaders need, and we're experiencing that with all the company leaders we're working with, whether Accenture, Walmart, Salesforce, Cisco, is to recognize that they need to put their own oxygen mask on first. Because a lot of leaders were brought up on this collective delusion that to be really effective, they need to power through exhaustion, that taking care of themselves is a luxury. And if they don't change that mindset, they both will not be able to be the best leaders they can be, especially in times of deep anxiety, uncertainty, when they need to be their most empathetic, inclusive, creative selves. But also they won't be able to role model these behaviors for their employees. So,
I agree with you 100%. Keep going. Yes, indeed.
so basically, when we do our leadership journeys in companies, the first leadership journey is put your own oxygen mask on first. And again, it doesn't have to be a huge shift in behavior. Ellen Shook, the CHRO of Accenture, had a hard time at the beginning of the pandemic doing her 20-minute daily walk. You know, it's not overwhelming, right? It's a 20-minute daily walk. So we worked together and we said it's non-negotiable. You got to put it in. And she sent me a text the other day, 593 days of uninterrupted walks. Game changing because it clears your mind. It helps you put yourself first for these 20 minutes and you return to work refreshed, renewed, refueled. So it wasn't just enough that she did it. She wrote about it. She spoke about it. She role modeled it. So in the same way, whatever it is for each leader, that is something that is foundational for their own well-being, both physical and mental. Please prioritize it and then role model it.
You know, Arianna, after all these years, I actually still use a lesson that you taught me many years ago. You wanted me to identify something that's important to me, and work and scheduling is important to me. And so for exercise, I learned to schedule it in my calendar, just like I do every other meeting in my life. And so I have made it as important to me as anything else. And those were life lessons to just change behaviors so that they could be to your well-being. Victoria and I sit here and I'm thinking to you, in this new normal, what do you think leaders need to know about working through resilience to get to their purpose and helping them thrive?
Thank you. And Arianna, you speak such a language I understand. And it's so wonderful. I feel like, you know, when we pair up together and send out that same message about prioritizing your own personal needs, it just gets me excited. So thank you for adding to something that I try and talk to people about. I think back to your question. So one of the things I learned along the way is, you know, how did I succeed? How did I manage? And I realized that I managed. I worked around the systems that were out there. And so the systems didn't enable me to achieve what I wanted to achieve. It was I was the one adapting to the systems instead of the systems changing to meet my needs. So I think one of the things that you know, we just ran a big Here to Be Heard campaign, Mars Incorporated, where we heard over 10,000 women tell us about what is blocking them from achieving their potential. And one of the key things that we've heard, and that I also experience, is that we need to change the system so that women don't have to adapt to the systems, but so that the systems are made to help women reach their full potential. And so we as women need to use our voices and our experiences and our presence to actually drive these change in these systems. And these changes in systems are, you know, they're little things that you think about. And one of the ones that resounds with me often is, you know, if we're doing interviews and we're trying to have more women in leadership positions, if the panel of people interviewing you are all men, there's a good chance that they're going to select a man. Yes. If you have a panel of interviewers that include at least 50% of the women, we have a much better chance that women will get to the next level. So there are little tweaks to the system that we have to make in order to empower women and have women be successful and bring our strengths. Because I think some of our strengths are collaboration, our empathy, our way of bringing everybody's views into a room so that we end up with better solutions. But this isn't going to happen unless we actually are able to change the systems to get more women into those positions.
Victoria, it sounds like you and Arianna are in lockstep with this micro steps that need to be taken throughout the life cycle. Am I correct, Arianna?
Absolutely. I love how Victoria and I, from very different backgrounds, different experiences, have come to the same conclusion. And the truth is that it's very hard to live your purpose if you're depleted, exhausted, and running on empty. And that's what we are realizing. And it's a hard cultural shift because for decades, ever since the first industrial revolution, we have come to believe, because we started revering machines and after machine software, that the goal for the human operating system is also to minimize downtime. And that's just not true. For the human operating system, downtime is a feature, not a bug. So this huge cultural shift now, which has been accelerated by the pandemic, is actually the one silver lining of the pandemic, because all these problems that we're addressing now, the mental health crisis, the skyrocketing increases in diseases like heart disease, like diabetes, like hypertension. As you know, Star, and you have been such an incredible proponent of a different way to live to prevent these diseases. So much of it is behavior based. And therefore, to know that we can prevent 75% of chronic diseases by changing our behaviors, it's like stunning that so little is being done about it. We only spend 3% of our healthcare spending on prevention. So that's really an opportunity because of the pandemic now to change that. And women are leading the way. Because women are paying a heavier price. As you know, women in stressful jobs have a much higher incidence of heart disease and of diabetes. We process stress differently, and therefore we pay a heavier price, and we also have an opportunity now to be leading a shift.
It's very interesting because for the first time, the American Heart Association has added stress as a absolute indicator of cardiovascular disease. And we expect, this is right now, scientific sessions is going on in the American Heart Association. And I think that sleep is going to be added, or the lack thereof is going to finally be added to that list as an indicator of heart disease or cardiovascular disease. And Victoria, I want to play off on this purpose word. You're a leader of a business that is purpose-driven, always has been. How do you think purpose has actually guided your decisions through this pandemic? Because the new normal of the pandemic has made us have to do some pivots, some changes. And especially you, because you had to help employees try to reach their full potential through inclusion while being away from each other the way we were normally. So I'll turn that over to you.
No, so thank you, Star. It's almost natural. When you said we've been a business that has very strong values and principles, and a very strong purpose that's natural to us. So our purpose says, the world we want tomorrow starts with how we do business today. So it talks about how we do business. It doesn't talk about what the business is. And so addressing, when the pandemic hit, it was natural for us to say, okay, what do we need to do to help our associates through this? The health and well-being of our own people, of our own associates, was priority number one. Doing our part in helping to prevent the spread of COVID was part of our priorities. And then how do we keep our business going so that we're serving the needs of the people? So that became the focus of the conversation of everything we did. So we didn't lay off people. We didn't have furloughs. We gave people the reassurance that if they could not go to work, or if our factories could not run, or if people could not be in the offices, that there was continuity. There was reassurance that they didn't have to worry about am I going to have a paycheck or am I not going to have a paycheck? So that was absolutely the priority for our conversations. But that also led us to stepping back and being able to say, okay, so now that we're living in a little bit of a different world, what do we need to do to help our associates now and in the future? So stress, we talk about stress, we talk about flexibility. So looking back and saying, okay, so what's our new normal going to look like going forward? And brought us to actually looking at some of our practices. One of the things I've often talked about, my big empowering moment in my career that kind of gave me a freedom was when I had some flexibility in my schedule or where I needed to be at what time. It wasn't from 8 to 5. Who cared if I did my work at 10 o'clock at night, if that's what worked for me, if I needed to run out with, one of my children and go to their school play, I didn't feel guilty about that. I knew. And so it really has also brought our organization to go back and say, okay, so what are going to be our new ways of working and not being so office bound so that we can empower people and help people thrive while they manage all the different pressures in life, because they're going to be there, whether it's children or parents or whatever your life brings. There are too many things for the amount of time that you actually have. And then we have to sleep and exercise too. And you have to prioritize yourself too. So you got to fit that in there. So it has forced us also to step back and say, okay, what are we going to do different going forward? And that's been really great. So having a purpose at the front center of everybody knows it, made it easy. It wasn't a debate about what we were going to do.
It's interesting because it seems as if purpose has always just been the foundation of your business. This is how we're going to do things. And so people had a wonderful expectation that you would fulfill that mission promise, if you will. It's always been my theory when it comes to business that if you treat your customers or your members well, you treat your employees well, your revenue will show the difference, because it's a three-legged stool, if you know what I mean. I'm going to move. We talked purpose, we talked thriving, but this word that keeps coming up in leaders, especially with women through this pandemic, is resilience. So Arianna, I turn to you. If I could give you my, as I like to call it, Black girl magic wand and let you just tap everyone on the shoulder, what would be your vision for reshaping a more mindful, resilient world?
I want your Black girl magic wand. Resilience is actually the word I picked for 2020, and I would pick it again for 2021, because what we've learned through the pandemic is that resilience is like a muscle. The more we exercise it, the stronger it gets. It's not like something we are born with or not born with. And resilience is not just about surviving through adversity. It's about getting through adversity stronger, a better version of ourselves. And that's really what we're seeing now. That's what we need. How we respond to stressful, challenging circumstances like the ones we've been going through depends entirely on how resilient we are. The same factors, the same problems, the same challenges can destroy someone or strengthen someone else. So resilience is something which increasingly companies are also prioritizing, because they see the connection between resilient employees and a resilient company.
Yes, indeed. And I think you have that Black girl magic wand in your hand, because you've been tapping people on the shoulder about resilience, and we've been leading with that. This is the time to utilize it. Victoria, I'm passing the Black girl magic wand over to you right now, because these are the big topics. You have already been a relentless advocate for reducing bias to benefit everyone. And so you have the wand now. How do we make closing the gender gap an economic and social necessity? It is a business imperative. It is not just something that makes you feel good. You have said this many times. Yes, it makes you feel good, but it makes sense. Help us.
Yes, and the data is out there. It's been out there. It's not new data. And it comes back to we've got to take action. And we talked about this Here to Be Heard campaign that we ran, and we got lots of data back, some great stories, some sad stories, some empowering stories. And we went through the whole process of analyzing and looking and saying what needs to change. And so it's really about taking action. We all play a different role in different parts of the world. Our company, we can start with our own people. We can start with our greater supply chain. We can talk about what we're doing in marketing, but just everywhere, breaking down those barriers that exist. Whether we're talking about one of the things which was very interesting is, we need men as allies to help us break down these barriers. So we're running programs to start these programs using men as allies to see how that could work, because that's what's going to empower us. We've made, you have to put targets in place of about, we want gender balanced leadership teams. That's not just going to happen magically. We then have to put the actions in place to actually make that happen, and then make sure we're all delivering actually on these targets. And the list goes on and on and on about all the things that we can be doing. But I think the most important thing is what we are doing. We're using our voices. We're using our voices to influence, to step up and make sure we're being heard, but we're also listening to all those women out there that are encountering different obstacles, but being a support for them, being mentors for them, being part of the movement. And I think the more our voices are heard, the more each business, purpose-led businesses, focus and actually have their voices heard, we can keep this ball rolling. And we need to get this ball rolling quickly, because we can't wait 100 years to get back to gender equity. I mean, my eldest daughter is 40. I have been talking about this for 40 years, and we haven't made progress. It's time for us to actually really get the ball moving.
You have just called for action, Victoria, is what you're saying. And I hear you loud and clear. And it's actually really where we end up today in our last minutes together. The Women's Forum 2021, the global meeting, has decided that we are going to ask each one of our participants, our leaders, to address what we call the closing question and call to action, which you have pretty much set up as a table set for me. How will you use our collective power with purpose for a more inclusive world? Victoria, I'll start with you.
So I'll come back to my own people. So if I can help empower the women that work in my business, we have 150,000 people out there, at least half of them are women. If I can empower the women with our organization so that they feel supported and they feel that they can reach their full potential, and as they become stronger in their own communities, within their own families, within their own countries, wherever they are, then that will also keep the ball rolling, because then they will impart that on other women. So I think it's very much of us sharing and growing together. And it's using, as you pointed out at the end, I've been doing this for a long time. We're the ones that are supporting in the background and actually helping to motivate and encourage that it can be done. And if you have a strong purpose, and if you remember to focus that it's okay to focus on yourself too, we will get there.
Relentless resiliency. That's what we're talking about here. Arianna, how will you use our collective power with purpose for a more inclusive world?
So, Star and Victoria, I believe we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to redefine productivity, to redefine how we work and live, and we cannot miss it. So, my commitment is to use this crisis as a catalyst for fundamental changes, cultural shifts, both within companies and across societies globally. Shifts that should have happened before the pandemic, but that have always been hard to prioritize. But now we have these catalysts who have been through this crucible. So I'm committed to making sure that this crisis does not go to waste.
I thank you both for your openness, your honesty, your calling us to action, giving us real, not talking points, but action points for us to move the needle to the next level. Thank you all very, very much. I look forward to the next opportunity to chat with you. Francesca, back over to you.
Hold on. I did the 101 classic of being on mute. What I was trying to say is it just me, or was that a panel? I go to a lot of conferences and there are panels and then there are panels, and this was a panel. It was amazing. You gave me the feeling that possibly you three are quite frequently going off to dinner and having a girls' night and chat on the text or whatever. It was amazing. It was from the heart. I had chills. You were an amazing moderator. Star, thank you. Thank you for your thoughts. Thriving, resilience, action, motivation. I feel ready to go on and take the next small step in the great series of small steps to get where we are all going, which is a better place. Thank you so much. And to our audience who is out there, I hope you will join us tomorrow for the final day of the 2021 global meeting for the Women's Forum. It is going to be a forward-looking day. We are going to talk about what the world needs now. And it is a lot. It is going to be a very long list of things that we need and work that we need to do. There is going to be a phenomenal number of global CEOs. Diane von Furstenberg is going to be speaking, and I really hope that you can join us. Part of it will be in person, part of it will be digital. There is no excuse. You can tune in from anywhere, wherever you are in the world at any time. Come join us. Thank you all so much. It's been a wonderful day, and thank you to our panelists. And I'm saying good night.